No. I think the decision to go to a voluntary aspect for careers guidance and that removal of a sense of journey through the education system is really bad, actually. I think if you look at the moment, kids are given choices that I'm not saying are good for the school, but sort of academically, this is what you should be doing if you're interested in, and things like that. I think there's a fundamental disconnect between the choices you make academically now and where you're going to be 10 to 15 years in the future in the labour market. And I think there is no route map. It's been made voluntary, a lot of schools are under pressure, resources are tight in this environment, and I think more needs to be done to help pupils see where their choices today will end up in the future. I think schools, the problem is, this goes through personal finance, right through to careers guidance and things like this. Teachers aren't social workers. Teachers are there to impart their wisdom in their specialist subject areas, but a lesser part of their remit is to prepare people for the future, for the world, things like that. I think what we need to look at is how to get people looking, and maybe once a term, whatever, have that sit down and say this is the future. And I think fundamentally getting business into schools, because at the end of the day teachers can only say so much. They're specialists in their subject areas, they're specialists in passing knowledge on to the future generation. I think business needs to come in and sort of say, look guys, your teachers are giving you this knowledge, this is what you can do with that knowledge, this is practically what you can achieve, these are the roadmaps that are available to you, and this is where you can end up in the future. So I think business has a real role to play. One of the biggest problems for this country at the moment is social mobility, or the collapse of social mobility. How can we get people involved and get people knowledgeable about wider options like going to the bar, going into politics, going to be a captain of industry? And I think the way to approach this is schools have traditionally got booklets and things like that. Maybe we need to start factoring in school trips focused on careers. So like you'd go to a science museum, you would have a school trip where they go to the Royal Courts of Justice, or they go to the BBC, they go to Channel 4, I think industry, trade associations, things, has a real responsibility to look at itself, and that, yes, we are going on about how children, like a recent CBI Pearson education study found, a lot of employers are having to fund remedial training for pupils when they start in their larger organisations. Well, surely it's in the business interest if they get kids early on in the school and say, look, you need to study, you need to learn, because it's going to prepare you for a really successful career, then ultimately it'll be there in the commercial interest to help fund initiatives to get people educated about the workplace and educated about the different options. Well, I think, for instance, if you have like a business person coming into a school, the way they dress, the way they hold themselves, I think they'll give a presentation about the options to get into that industry. They'll also say, look, these are the personal standards that are required from you to succeed in the workplace. Then schools, obviously, they've got citizenship lessons, things like that, how to be engaged in society. I think maybe an aspect of that curriculum should be adapted to very personal issues of how you carry yourself, respect for others, things like that, on a micro level, on a day-to-day basis. So rather than the grand portrait of citizenship and being part of the community or whatever, you say, look, you are an agent within this community and this is how you need to react.